Once upon a time, in a kingdom far, far away, there lived a young girl called Cinderella. Cinderella was a kind and gentle girl with a beautiful smile. Cinderella had a heart full of love, but unfortunately, she lived with a selfish stepmother and her two stepsisters. The stepmother had two daughters of her own, and she treated Cinderella unfairly, making her do all the housework dressed in rags, while her own daughters lived in luxury. Despite the cruelty she faced, Cinderella remained kind and gentle, never letting her stepmother's unkindness change who she was. Cinderella would seek comfort in the garden, listening to the song of the birds and the rustle of leaves in the trees. One morning, the kingdom received news. The prince was hosting a grand ball at the palace, and every maiden in the land was invited. The stepsisters were so excited, and they spent the next few weeks preparing their gowns and practicing their dancing. The night of the ball arrived, and Cinderella watched her sisters with a sad smile. She had hoped that she might be able to attend the ball, but now realized this was unlikely to happen. The sisters got ready for the ball and excitedly left the house with their mother. Cinderella was left alone in her old clothes, and she sat by the fireplace with tears in her eyes, wishing for just a taste of the magic that she'd heard about in stories. When suddenly, she heard a soft, sweet voice fill the room. It was her fairy godmother, a beautiful figure surrounded by a soft light. "Why are you crying, my dear?" the fairy godmother asked. Cinderella explained her wish to attend the ball, and how her stepmother hadn't allowed her to go. The fairy godmother smiled and said, "Don't worry, my child, you shall go to the ball." And with a wave of her wand, Cinderella's rags were turned into a beautiful gown, and on her feet, the most delicate glass slippers. Her fairy godmother turned a pumpkin into a beautiful carriage, and mice into horses. Cinderella would travel to the ball in style. Before she left, the fairy godmother gave Cinderella one piece of advice. "Remember, my dear, the magic will only last until midnight." The moment Cinderella entered the ball, the entire room fell silent, and the prince was charmed by her beauty. They danced together like a dream, and as the hours flew by, she suddenly heard the bells as the clock struck midnight. Cinderella hurriedly said goodbye and fled from the palace. But as she ran down the grand steps, one of her glass slippers fell off her foot. She didn't have time to retrieve it, and so, with only one shoe, she disappeared into the night. Cinderella was left only with the memory of an enchanting evening. The next day, the prince was determined to find the owner of the glass slipper, and his attendants travelled through the kingdom visiting every home to see if the slipper would fit anyone. When they arrived at Cinderella's house, her stepsisters eagerly tried their feet into the glass slipper, but it was too small for them, and their feet simply wouldn't squeeze in. Cinderella watched hidden from view, and then she stepped forward and asked, "May I try?" She placed the shoe on her foot, and it fit perfectly. The prince's eyes lit up with joy, and he realised he had found the maiden that he had danced with at the ball. The stepsisters were astonished, and Cinderella was delighted that she had been reunited with the handsome prince. And together, they lived happily ever after.